Hey guys, it's Rick with the Digital Divide. Today we're going to be taking a look at ports that were seemingly impossible due to the technical limitations of the platforms that they were ported to. A lot of these are just mind-boggling how they ended up working. The first one I want to talk about is actually Quake for the original Sega Saturn. Now, this was released on the Sega Saturn in December 7th, 1997, right at the end of its life cycle. If you look at the tech specs on the PC side, the minimum requirement is a 75 megahertz Intel processor with 16 megabytes of RAM if you're running Windows and 8 megabits if you're running DOS. Now, the Sega Saturn, comparatively, only had two Hitachi processors running at 28 megahertz a pop, and only had 2 megabytes of main RAM and 1.5 of VRAM. So the Quake engine was not going to run on this thing. So how did they get it on the Sega Saturn? Well, a company called Lobotomy Software stepped in to make a custom engine called the Slave Driver engine that was actually created for their first game on the Saturn called Power Slave. So this engine would later go on to power the port of Duke Nukem 3D, which they also did, and Quake. Now, this was a really powerful engine, and it had advanced lighting features that were not even on the PC version. Now, obviously, the resolution was lower, and the frame rate was a lot lower, but the architecture was intact and matched the PC version. The soundtrack was the same. It had the Nine Inch Nails Trent Reznor soundtrack, which the Nintendo 64 port of this game did not have, and as I stated before, it even has features such as the lighting here that the PC and Nintendo 64 ports did not have. The skybox was even intact, and although the water mesh on top was less impressive than the PC version, if you go underwater, there were features there that were not present in the PC version. So overall, I think it was a really, really impressive port. It still blows me away today. I have it on the Saturn. I still play it from time to time. Terrific game. Now, the next one I want to talk about is The Witcher 3 for the Nintendo Switch. Now, this one really blew me away when I first saw it because this is essentially running on cell phone architecture. I mean, the NVIDIA Tegra GPU that the Switch is using is several years old at this point, and again was designed to run on mobile operating systems, which the Nintendo Switch is, but seeing a game of this scope that is completely open world running on a handheld is super impressive. I mean, even though it only runs at about 540p undocked and 720p docked, it's still really impressive to see on the ground. I mean, if you compare that to the PS4 Pro version, for example, it doesn't look great on a big screen TV, but the fact that it's even still able to run on the Switch at all blew me away. I mean, this is a really technically demanding game. And I know a lot of you are going to say, why aren't you including Doom, the Switch port of Doom in this? And it's because the ID Tech engine is incredibly well optimized and scalable. It's designed to run on pretty much everything, so I think it's a little bit less impressive. Now, speaking of Doom, the next game I want to talk about is Doom 3 for the original Xbox. This is one that also completely blew me away. Visually, it was stunning on the PC. I remember playing this on the PC back in the day, and you had to have a powerhouse machine to run this game. I mean, it was a really impressive game. The shadows were incredible. It was one of the first games to really use stencil shadows. And John Carmack designed the engine to showcase what hardware of that time could do. And even today, I think this game looks incredible. It uses normal maps, stencil shadows. It's a really impressive game. The particle effects are really impressive. Take a look at some of this gameplay. Take a look at some of this gameplay.
Has requested your immediate attention. Head directly to Marine Command.
Alright, now the next game I want to talk about is Dragon's Lair for the Game Boy Color. And this game isn't impressive as far as rendering is concerned because it is so low resolution, but what makes it so impressive is the amount of animation data that they have to store. And we're talking about the original Game Boy, not the Game Boy Advance or the 3DS. We're talking about the OG Game Boy Color. And the fact that they got this many frames of animation on that tiny cartridge blew me away. The arcade ROM size was 128 megabytes, and the maximum size you could get on the Game Boy Color was only 8 megabytes, and that's the maximum. So the fact that they got this running at all was really impressive to me. Now, while we're talking about Nintendo, the next game and the final game for now that I want to talk about is Resident Evil 2 for the Game Boy Advance. Now, this game was never actually released to the public. This was created in 2003 by Raylight Studios. It's an Italian company, and they made this demo to pitch their Blue Roses engine on the Game Boy Advance. They originally pitched this to Nintendo. Nintendo obviously shot them down, but the tech demo can still be downloaded online and played on actual Game Boy Advance hardware, and all the models are completely 3D, just like the PlayStation version, and it's so impressive. This is probably the most impressive impossible port that I've seen, and unfortunately it was never released, but based on this tech demo, it would have been incredible to behold, and I wish somebody would release the full port, but, you know, well, what can we do? So, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any ideas for impossible ports that you'd like me to cover in the future, post in the comments below and let me know. Thanks.